There's one interview question that stops mid-career professionals cold more than any other question, and it's this: why did you leave your last job? And if you were laid off, that question can feel like a trap. You don't want to sound like a victim. You don't want them thinking that there was something wrong with your performance. And you don't want to badmouth your former employer. But you also don't want to lie or be vague because that creates other problems. So you stumble through some version of they restructured and then you try and move on quickly. Then you spend the rest of the interview wondering if they believed you or if that one answer might have cost you the offer. I'm Danielle Bradley. I'm a career coach for mid-career professionals, and today I want to talk about how to answer this question in a way that makes you feel confident, that's honest, and that works in your favor. Most people really struggle with this one, and it's costing them opportunities that they're truly qualified for. So why does this question feel so hard? When you're earlier in your career, a layoff can feel like more of a temporary setback. But when you're 15 to 20 years in your career, it can feel more like a statement about your worth, about your relevance, about whether you still have a place in this market. And that emotional weight can show up in how you answer that question in interviews. You either over-explain or get into too much details about the restructuring, about the politics and the budget cuts, in an effort to help them understand that it was nothing to do with you. Or you under-explain, give a vague one-liner, and shut down because you really don't want to talk about it. Both of these approaches are going to send the wrong signal. Over-explaining sounds defensive. Under-explaining sounds like you're hiding something, and neither one of these are going to help you seem confident. And here's what hiring managers are watching for or listening for when you answer this question. They want to know if you are someone who owns their story, someone who can talk about a difficult situation with clarity and composure, someone who's moved forward, who's moved on, is not still emotionally tangled with a situation. So the way you answer this question tells them a lot more than just why you left. It tells them how you handle adversity, and that really matters at senior levels. A common mistake that I see with this question is people treat it like a confession. They'll walk in feeling apologetic and already assuming that the interviewer is skeptical. They'll try and prove they were not at fault before anyone thinks otherwise. So they overcorrect and over-explain. And they end up spending too much time on something that's going to take away from other things that they can strategically cover during their interview time. The other mistake I see is going vague to avoid discomfort. Something like, there was a restructuring and my role was eliminated. That's it. This technically answers the question, but might leave a gap in the interviewer's mind. So what works here is something in between. Clear, honest, brief, and then forward-looking. You acknowledge what happened, give context without over-explaining, and then move the conversation towards where you're going, not where you've been. Let me give you a framework to answer this that works in almost every situation. There are 3 parts to it. Part 1 is state what happened simply and directly. There's no need to dress it up or add unnecessary details. The company went through a restructuring. Your department was eliminated. Your position was part of a broader reduction. You want to cover this in 2 sentences at the most, and you want to have the emotion behind it be as neutral as possible. That's it. You've answered the question. You've given enough context. And you haven't wasted 4 minutes of your precious interview time getting into details that really don't add to the conversation. Part 2 is you want to briefly affirm your standing before the event happened. This is optional, but worth including, especially if you can do it naturally. So you can share something that signals your performance without making it sound defensive. So you're not dwelling on it here. You're giving additional context. Part 3 is you want to pivot where you're headed. This is the most important part, and most people skip it completely. After you've explained what happened, redirect the conversation towards where you're going and why you're excited to be interviewing for the role that you're talking to them about. Now you're in the conversation that you want to be having, the one where you're talking about your value, your goals, and why you are fit for the role. Now I have to say the tone and the energy behind your answer to this question matters just as much as the words that you're saying. If you're tense when you answer this question, if you feel anxious about it, it's going to come across. It may plant some seeds of doubt in the interviewer's mind. And that's the last thing that we want. So the goal is to answer this with the same composure that you would have any other question. You want to feel neutral when you're answering this question. A layoff is a business decision. It doesn't have to define you. And when you think about it in those terms and you feel neutral about it, your explanation is going to land in a much better way for the interviewer. And if it's not how you feel yet, the feeling neutral about it, then this is something to work on before your interviews. The emotional weight that you're carrying around about the layoff is going to show up, whether you want to or not. So this is something worth working through. So what if there's more to the story? Sometimes the situation is a bit more complicated. Maybe you were laid off, but you also had a tough relationship with your manager. Maybe the company was going in a direction that you disagreed with. Maybe there were performance discussions before the layoff happened. Here's the thing, you don't have to share all of that in an interview. You're not under oath here. You're not required to give the complete unfiltered story that led to your departure. What you need to do is be honest about what you do share. You don't want to say something that's going to come up differently if they were to do a reference check or contact your former company and ask about how you left. But being strategic about what you do include and the level of detail is completely appropriate. You're telling a professional story, you get to create the narrative around it. For example, if there were performance discussions before the layoff happened, the answer can still start the same way. The company went through a restructuring, and then you focus the rest of the conversation on what you've learned, what you're looking for next, and the value that you bring. One of my clients came to me after a layoff that hit particularly hard. She was with the company for almost 8 years, got 2 promotions, and then one day her entire division was eliminated. Every time she got into an interview and this question came up, she felt her entire body tense up. She'd over-explain the situation, almost apologize for it, and then she remained uncomfortable for the rest of the interview. So we worked on how she was framing it and also on the way she was thinking about it and the way she was feeling about it so that she could show up in a neutral tone. Once we shifted this, her interview performance changed. She wasn't apologizing for it anymore. She was just stating it, giving context, and then moving on. She landed an internationally known role in a field that she was really passionate about. The layoff did not change how qualified she was. Changing how she talked about it changed how interviewers saw her. So here's what to do right now. Write out your answer to this question before your next interview. Not a script that you're going to memorize, but a framework. Cover what happened in 2 or 3 sentences, no more. And then pivot to where you're headed and why this role specifically. Practice it out loud. Not until it sounds rehearsed, but until it sounds comfortable, neutral, till you can say it without feeling your energy shifting. When you can answer this question confidently, it becomes a non-issue in your interviews. A layoff is not a scarlet letter. It doesn't disqualify you. The answer that works is honest, brief, and forward-looking. You state what happened, you give just enough context, and then you move on to where you're headed next. That's what confident candidates do, and that gets you to the next round. Subscribe to my channel for more advice for mid-career professionals. And if you'd like some support with your mid-career job search, I invite you to book a call with us. The link is in the description below. And watch this video next, The Truth About Getting Hired After 50. Link is in the description. I'll see you in the next video.